Welcome to the next in a series of interviews for National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. As you know, October is National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and we're every week interviewing a distinguished guest to give some insights into how do you stay secure and protect your information. And today I'm very happy to have John Coursen. John, a brief intro, or welcome, John, to the interview.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm pumped to be here.
A very brief bio. John is a distinguished Quinnipiac graduate, #1. He is, I'll call him a serial entrepreneur. He started several businesses in the last 10 years, and he currently has started and is managing Fortify Security, and the second company is called Edwin. And we're going to talk a little more about Edwin later on, since it relates directly to what's going on in National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So just what the DHS, Department of Homeland Security, has emphasized for this month is personal accountability, and they've emphasized security in the workplace and at home. So it's not just one or the other. So I wanted to start the conversation, John, just asking you, what are your thoughts? You're in the security marketplace in a couple of different businesses and obviously at home yourself. What are the things that come to mind that the average user, not necessarily the CISO of a company, what can the average user do these days to stay more secure?
Yeah, great question. I think it may help just to give a couple few, I always like stats and figures and stuff like that. So just recently I'm always hunting around for different research and statistics, but amazing stat, first stat I want to just bring out quickly is ransomware attacks actually in 2019 have doubled. And that to me is fascinating because we have all this, like we have, all these different solutions and endpoint protection and firewalls and all this new stuff that comes out year after year, yet we still have ransomware as one of the most destructive sort of forces so far, and 75% of healthcare systems have been affected by ransomware this year, which is also an amazing stat. And one, a couple of my favorite stat actually is 91% of breaches happen through email. That's why email is a huge focus of ours and Edwin's in educating, employees and end users and managers on different ways to layer up your security on the email side. But the most important part of actually preventing a breach through email is actually using your brain and understanding who, am I expecting this email? What is the cadence of this email? Does this address look familiar to me? They're always adding different sort of stressors, so different ways to kind of throw you off. And then the last stat that I want to bring up quickly was more than 80% of breaches actually happen through out-of-date software. So just, in larger organizations, it's a real issue in keeping systems up to date because you have different, different departments, you have development, and that it's a little bit more difficult to keep, to have a very strong or requires more resources to have a great, patch management policy. But for a small business, like that is a major, that's a major area that people just overlook. Like they assume that auto updates are on and that they're fine. Well, you should be checking, like in Edwin, we have missions designed even for end users at home to be checking your Windows machines and your Macs for the latest updates. And even though you have auto updates on, a lot of times they don't run. And so that stat, that stat of, 80% of breaches happen through, out of date software is an amazing stat. I mean, it's how if you read in the news, a lot of these breaches, the high profile breaches are all related to software and platforms that haven't been patched.
Interesting. Yeah. So let me go back to the email, so your stat was 91% of breaches occur through email. Have you seen any, I guess one thing is use your brain, right? You talked about, think before you click and that kind of thing. Are there any technologies, what else can you do? Are there technology, like can you whitelist so you only get emails from a few people depending on who you are? If you're a home user, if you're senior citizen or maybe you don't need to get emails from it. Have you found that approach is valuable or something?
Yeah, I mean, I would say more so on the, more so on the personal side. I think you can be a little bit more stringent in who you're receiving email through. On the personal side, you need to rely on the platform's email security.
Yeah.
And certain platforms have better email security than others. For example, like I found that if you're leveraging a sort of like an email address that your provider gives you, your internet provider gives you, I would say that the security, the sort of back-end security that they have is not as robust as, say a Gmail or an Outlook, because those, the internet carriers where you get your internet from, like their business is not providing email mailboxes. Like they provide internet and TV, and they offer that as a way to kind of sweeten the deal, I guess. And it's a way to keep you sticky and captive to that service. But you need to be careful of like real threats in those, I would say not second tier, but the email platforms that offer that as a complement to their primary service. And on the business side, there's great solutions. We have been recommending solutions that actually look at emails like a human does. So they use different technologies to basically bring an email up and look at it like a human would, check the cadence of the email, check for grammar, check for, first time sender, those sort of things, and flag that email if that email has a certain sort of risk threshold. And flag can mean a nice banner that they put in the top, of an email. You've probably seen a lot of times you see like an email that says like from external sender or something like that. But we're now recommending different solutions that go even a step beyond just identifying an external sender, but giving you a real sort of awareness point of view of like real-time kind of, security awareness of that particular message. So
excellent. Let me ask you you talked about email, but there are other like Facebook messaging, and you can send messages on LinkedIn. Do you have any thoughts on, are those secure? Are they reliable? What are your views on those types of social media messaging platforms?
Yeah. So it's a great question. I love that question because I think a lot of people assume that these services are secure. I think a lot of people also don't understand sort of who may necessarily even have the ability to read an encrypted message. You've seen probably in the news that Facebook has had multiple events where their private messages have actually had security breaches. So Facebook Messenger, I would probably not put anything too sensitive in there. And Facebook also purchased WhatsApp, which is a big, there was a big sort of there were a lot of people getting all upset about the Facebook WhatsApp acquisition, because WhatsApp actually is encrypted end to end. It's a great chat service. There's over 1 billion users on it. It's used internationally. You can do video calls and all sorts of stuff. But now that Facebook owns it, yeah, I think security, privacy, minded individuals like myself, I take the WhatsApp platform now with a little bit of there's the grain of salt now on like is this really that private? There's a really good private chat platform called Signal, and it's actually the same it uses Open Whisper systems, which is the back end to the platform. And actually that's what WhatsApp was, I believe, built off of as well. So, and LinkedIn is owned by Microsoft. So people have various concerns about that, LinkedIn Messenger. But, you know, I think you need to just understand the sort of information that if you're sending some, you know, if you're communicating with a buddy that you work with, or a buddy you graduated with on LinkedIn, you don't have, you know, you're not sending sensitive information. I don't think that that's an issue. It's just if you're sending, you know, if you're sending anything you don't want, you know, you don't want the sort of newspaper analogy to happen. You have to, you know, think about one of these other platforms like Signal. Because they're really secure, really good.
Okay, all right, great. So let's change the topic a little bit, because I know you have a software firm, Edwin, and I believe it's in kind of a similar space that sort of fits into National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing with Edwin and what problem it's solving, and how, you know, who is it applicable to? Because I think it ties in very nicely to what we're talking about this month. Yeah,
no, we love you know, the Cybersecurity Awareness Month. We think Edwin is Cybersecurity Awareness Month every month. But what we are building and have built a behavior change platform that helps businesses and their end users get more secure. And we have turned the sort of security awareness element, I would say, totally over, because I've had experience, and the other founders of Edwin have had experience in security awareness programs. We always thought that they were very top down. I'm very like, you must do this and you must not do that. And we don't believe that really works. We think people just pay attention to just enough and then have to pass a quiz, and then and then next year they do the same thing over again. They don't actually get anything from a program like that. So that's where Edwin was born. We have hundreds of missions that we've developed in a conversational UI. So it's you can get this on your phone, you can get it on the on your computer, and we take users through what we call missions. I just mentioned that, which are like a 5 to 7 minute little basically 5 to 7 minutes of guidance on how to be secure in an area. And it could be your personal email, it could be your home router, it could be watching out for phishing, specific phishing threats. And it's we really believe that repetition, spaced repetition, some certain elements of behavior change are an effective way of helping an organization and their end users get more secure.
Very cool. So you hear a lot about small and medium-sized businesses being attacked. They don't have the funds to necessarily put in place all the technology, right, that these larger companies do. Is Edwin something that can be support that particular marketplace, or is it more for Fortune 1000 size companies?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we absolutely have manager missions and have thought and know this is a major issue, right? Like I said, I don't know if I mentioned the stat of 43% of attacks are targeted towards SMBs. And the reason that unfortunately these adversaries are successful is like you were saying, a lot of companies don't have. It may not even necessarily be the funds. It's actually just the resources to understand what should I be doing. And so we've designed missions for exactly that use case. Like if you're using Office 365 as a manager, here's what you can do to enable various security features. A lot of times they don't cost any money. It's just that you need a resource that you trust that can help you, enable these features, understand the implications of them, and then realize the benefits. So absolutely, we found that the SMBs like this because they think of Edwin as their virtual security officer. And then on the larger side, we've designed Edwin to also help the larger firms with third-party risk. So Edwin helps larger companies understand their vendor risk. So they will send Edwin out to a contractor that they use, and the contractor will go through these missions that the large company kind of designates, and we then score and kind of give a risk sort of profile of that particular contractor, and that can be an ongoing thing, which we found is very helpful too, because we filled out a lot of vendor due diligence questionnaires, and they're a one-time thing. It's like you get it once a year, you answer yes, and that's kind of it. It's kind of like it's a checkbox kind of liability transfer exercise, which we don't believe really layers up security at all. So.
No, that's very cool. So yeah, I've seen those check boxes, and they're typically put together by one or responded to by one person, right? And that
Yep.
person can't really speak accurately as to what's going on. So that would be, yeah, if you have an assistant, a virtual assistant like Edwin, who could sort of sample your whole company's operations, I think it's a little scary, but it would certainly be very good. So can I, where can people find out more about this? I know it's not, should they go to your homepage, or where do you recommend it?
Yeah, edwinsecure.com. Yeah, that's that. And or John at edwinsecure.com is my email. And like we say we talk with all sorts of different companies. We are happy to help, at any stage. Even if you're interested in Edwin, we'd love to give you a demo of it. But we love talking about security, so we're happy to help. Even if you need some tips outside of Edwin, we're happy to do that also. So
that's very cool. Well, any parting thoughts on what is there one tip? Let's say, let's only ask listeners to do one thing, this month to improve their security. Any one thing you might suggest they should do, given what's going on?
So the one thing, and people probably have said this a lot, and I think that everyone knows, it just take 2 minutes to look at a password manager. It's one of the most, I'm sure you hear it a lot, but I've adopted them. Our whole team has. They not only make you more secure, I don't have one password that's the same anywhere, but it makes your life so much easier. That's the other thing with like Edwin is like, we don't, we give guidance, that affects security, obviously, but also like these are tools that will prevent you from resetting your password every 4.5 days because you forgot what the other one was, and you waste a lot of time. I forget what it was. I think they say the average person spends I think it's like a few hours a year resetting passwords. So it's a total time waste. So I would say look at a password manager. I have a whole bunch of different ideas outside of that are probably more exciting, that if you want to, ping me about, I'm happy to talk about crypto, SIM swaps on your mobile phone, lollipop drops, dropping USB sticks and seeing who picks up what. And password managers, definitely look at one of them, because they're worth checking out.
I think that's very good advice. And I think your other point, it can save time, and that's more time you can spend looking at those fake emails that come in and not clicking on them, right? There's an added, that's very good. Well, thank you so much for John, for your time and for sharing your thoughts. And to listeners, please join in again next week. We're going to be on week 2 of National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And till then, stay secure.
Thanks. See you later.